It is October, and as you all know, it is Clovernook Center's Meet the Blind Month. And as I told you in my first interview, I will be conducting a series of interviews with different individuals. And today we have a very special guy, hold him in very high regard. Would you like to introduce yourself to us, sir, and tell us what your job title is?
Well, certainly. Thanks for the compliment, by the way. My name is David Grimes, and I am a corrector / quality assurance coordinator, and I've been here for 23 years.
Excellent, man. Thank you for your service here. Would you like to talk about what your day-to-day job is at Clovernook Center?
Sure. Basically, I work from 7:30 to 4:15, and my job is basically once people get done reading a magazine or a book for firsts, which is the first go around, it gets corrected, then it comes to me, then I go through it with a fine-tooth comb because I'm kind of like the last line of defense before something goes out the door. So my goal is to try to make it as perfect as possible so that they don't find any errors on it, because if they find errors on it, it comes back on me. And that's not real good for me because I try to do the best I can. So what I do is I go through and I look for certain errors that show up, and anything I find, I fix. I keep a log of what I find and fix. And then after that, it gets ready for the second read. The second readers are blind people, and they read it to themselves, and they keep a braille error log of what they find. And that comes back to me when they're done. Then I correct what they find, give it one last check over before it goes to either the library to be approved or not approved if it's a book, or out to the press room where it gets pressed or goes to zinc, actually, to Terry first, and then he does it on the zinc plates, and then it goes to the press room and where they press it, and then goes to the bindery where they bind it and check it, and then it gets shipped out all over the world.
I really appreciate all the hard work you put into making sure that the quality is next to none.
Thank you.
So we've talked a little bit about your work. So the next thing I would like to talk about is your story, your journey. I know everyone has a different journey. So tell us a little bit about yours. Were you born blind or visually impaired, or was it something that happened along your journey? Was it from illness, or how? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I was born in Akron, Ohio. I was a preemie, so I was born 3 months early, and so what that did was they had to give me oxygen because I wasn't breathing well. So they had to turn up the oxygen because every time they tried to turn it down, I'd turn blue. So they had to either, to keep me alive, or so they'd turn the oxygen up. But what it did is it burned out my retinas and my optic nerve. It's called retinopathy of prematurity. It was very common in the 50s and 60s. A lot of people have that. And so what it does is the oxygen burns out your optic nerve and your retina. So your eyes, basically, they just don't work, as my 3-year-old niece said one time. So that's how I became blind. I was born that way. And so my eyes just never finished developing because of the damage done by the oxygen.
Wow. So many people, they look at individuals who are blind and sometimes group them into the same category. One of the reasons why we are conducting these interviews in the first place is to allow individuals out there, sighted, blind, visually impaired, to understand that everyone has a different journey. Everyone has a different walk of life. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to, just tell us a little bit about you and your story.
No problem.
Which brings us to our next question. If you could pick one thing that you would like the world to know about individuals who are blind and visually impaired, what would that be?
That we are people. We are people just like you are. We have needs, we have feelings, we have emotions, we have wants, dreams. It's very important that when you interact with a blind or visually impaired person, that you interact with them and not the people who are with them. I know it might not be the most comforting or most comfortable thing first go around, but if you start talking to us, you will find out that we're just like you. And that's very important to me. So if you come upon a blind or visually impaired person and there was someone, don't talk to that person and say, They're like, don't say, what does he want, or what does he do for a living? You know, ask the person directly. That's my biggest pet peeve, is when people talk to the people I'm with instead of talking to me, because I can talk, believe me.
Absolutely. That is something that I have been learning myself is a big issue, and something that I think if people tune in and watch these interviews, they'll learn and understand that we are people just like everyone else. There's nothing that separates us. I just may not see as well as you, but you know, I'm just like you in every other area.
Yep.
So, final question. The way I understand it, you have a few fun facts about yourself. So,
I do have a few fun facts.
why don't you share a couple of them with us?
Okay. When I went to visit my aunt and uncle out in Montana, their neighbor had a bobcat, which is like a small bulldozer. And I got to drive it and took out a stump on their property with it. So that was fun.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I got a lot of stories about driving. I drove my brother's Polaris, it's a four-wheeler, on a busy road, and he said, "You're drifting." I said, "I don't feel it." He said, "Well, why don't you feel it?" He's like, "Well, you can't really see the lines, I guess, so I guess you couldn't really feel it." It's another fact about driving, so it's something that we don't ever get to do very often.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
when I get the chance, I jump at it. And I've also been licked in the face by a wolf.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I have.
Wolf.
Yes, I have. A wolf, yes. Was my lifelong dream was to pet one. And I finally got to pet one, and the woman had said, "Do not make eye contact." So he comes right up to me and he turns and faces me. I'm like, well, we're making eye contact, so whatever. And I was sitting on the bench, and he was tall. I mean, he was big. And all of a sudden his tongue just goes right across my face. And the woman said, "He's never done that with anybody before." So he must have known that I was a kindred spirit. I love wolves. They're my favorite animal. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. I collect
Now,
a lot of sculptures of wolves.
Now, that's so interesting. I mean, I know you're sharing your fun facts, but one thing about you that I know personally is just the fact that anytime you hear a bird, you can tell us exactly what it is, and you've never even seen them. I mean, to me, that is very interesting.
Yeah, bird watching is one of my hobbies. I guess it'd be not watching, it'd be birding by ear is what they call it. And so I've studied and learned different bird songs, and so I could probably identify, I don't know, maybe 100, maybe more. I don't even know how many birds that I can identify by sound. But there's so many that are quite common around here, so a lot of times you hear the same ones. But the groups that are most hard to identify are the warblers, because there's like 50 different species of them, and a lot of them sound the same. So if I had to study any group of birds, that would be one that I would like to take the time and really learn their songs, because they're so different.
Well, that is really cool. I really want to give you a special thank you for sitting down with me today.
No problem.
And just sharing a tad bit of your story. Like I stated before, this is October, which means it is Meet the Blind Month. And we appreciate you sitting down and tuning in with us for a bit. And our goal here is to allow individuals to gain insight about the blind and visually impaired community. And maybe you can learn a little bit about us. So thank you.